Welcome back, Alpha Hunters. Hopefully, you're having a very terrific Thursday today. We are seeing the market trading a little bit higher right now. Yesterday, we didn't really do too much until that last hour. We got a nice little jolt going into the close yesterday, right before we got to NVDA's earnings. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then we had a nice little gap up today. It was not from NVIDIA. But we did gap up on the market about 0.5%, I believe. Yeah, about 0.5% there on the gap up. Actually, about 0.5% on the dot, pretty much. So nice little pullback there. First like 10 minutes. It kind of was pretty choppy there for about 45 minutes. Nice little drop off. But then over the past 45 minutes or so, or even 30 minutes, really kind of strong, trying to make a run back up to those opening levels, the day's high. And where did all that kind of come from? Well, the Qs. A lot of that selling on the open came from the tech area, and you can see the Qs haven't gotten back up to those highs or even close, but you can see the Qs kind of gapped up about 0.6%. A little bit more of the bearish action here. It did get negative, actually about 1%. Yeah, it got negative by about 1.1% there. You can see it's kind of climbing back. Currently slightly negative with the SPY up 0.25%. IWM, nice gap up. Never really got hit with a huge sell. But you can see the IWM gapped up about 0.5%. Choppy uptrend, and then nice little pop there over the past about 30 minutes or so. And the IWM is currently about 1.25%. DIA. This also had a pretty good gap of about 1/3%, a little bit more than that. Kind of choppy, a little bit more of a pullback in that first 10 minutes, but nice choppy bullishness. Definitely looks a lot better than the SPY, the Qs, but nice run here over the past 40 minutes or so. Looking pretty good there. RSP also looking pretty decent, kind of continuing that trend it had at the close of yesterday. And then we had that gap up, kind of pulled back and just kind of continued that trend. All right. RSP is up about 1%. So we're seeing some really strong rotation right now out of some big tech areas and into non-big tech areas, right? So, I mean, the RSP is up 1%, and you got the SPYs only up 0.2%. So that tells you how much rotation is not going into the big tech areas currently. Yeah, I mean, look at that move. Oof, that looks pretty solid. Looks pretty solid there on the RSP. DIA also continuing up, looks pretty good as well. A lot of these kind of just retesting some previous all-time highs on that breakout that we had 3 weeks back on election week. IWM did it as well. Wednesday on that gap down, looking pretty good. So a lot of the things working right now. The one area that's kind of not working is tech, right? Tech. One of the things that's really interesting with on the SPY especially is, we had this open gap that we had back here from, what was this, November 6th to November 7th, that Wednesday to Thursday. And then we had this gap down here from last Thursday to Friday, and there were open gaps here. So we had this island reversal. We almost filled that this morning on this gap up here with the Qs. Not saying we won't by the end of the day, but we still have a little bit of an open gap there that we never have traded intraday in this price range here on the Qs. So yeah, we got that gap up, traded in a range, gap down, never traded in a range, sideways, gapped up, almost filled it, not quite, still haven't traded in a little bit of a range there, about 507.2 to about 508.50 or so, something like that. Kind of an interesting look. But the SPY, though, did fill its gap because it gapped up over the open gap here that we did have over that time frame. And then obviously we saw the sell down on the open. So it filled that entire gap. So it was kind of looking like we had an island reversal, and then we had an abandoned baby on the open. But with how much selling we saw there on the open, I mean, that abandoned baby got filled real quick. And it was kind of interesting because we just, a pretty good gap up with a pretty good lower wick yesterday. I was like, oh yeah, that looks pretty bullish, right? And then we just kind of traded down, checked into that 20 EMA, and it looks pretty good. I mean, right now we're setting up to have 2 lower wicks in a row. Say that we don't go higher. I mean, it's going to depend on how we look at the end of the day. If we want to roll them back over and get back to the lows of the day, or even breaking those lows, then automatically we'll probably just go lower tomorrow. But anyways, that's just kind of how things are looking right now. NVDA, so the big one, it did have a little bit of a gap up on the open, and I'll go to the intraday after hours kind of time frame here, because it wasn't really from NVIDIA. So NVIDIA, when they had an earnings yesterday, they weren't horrible. They weren't, but they weren't like how they've been over the past year and a half. So I mean, NVIDIA just didn't really do too much. It was basically negative for after it did earnings, and then overnight it went on a, early this morning it trended higher. One of the things that kind of helped NVIDIA was it got kind of an uplift from just the tech market in general because of Snowflake. So if you want to know why NVIDIA is actually doing somewhat bullish today, it's because of this company, Snowflake. You see over here on the right, it's up 32% on the day. Crazy town. So that is one reason why NVIDIA is actually up. It's not really because of NVIDIA itself. It's because Snowflake just come out and absolutely crush things. But I'm not going to go through that right now. And that's just kind of where we are on the market today. As far as the VIX kind of just not doing anything, which is, I mean, I guess that's kind of what you expect with market gap up, sell off, kind of we're bouncing off those lows, making our ways back up to the daily highs. So VIX trying to probably figure out what it's going to do. DXY dollar index came a little bit off the highs yesterday, still continuing a little bit higher today. Okay. GLD continuing a little bit higher as well. So yeah, people bought the dip on gold pretty aggressively. And what's really kind of interesting is we didn't really get to that 100 moving average. So if I check that gold futures, yeah, so the gold futures actually did interact with that 100 moving average. And if you are going to play commodities through ETFs, always be checking in with the actual commodity price, because these trade 24/7. So the ETFs don't exactly get the entire day, the day range correct. So yeah, gold futures did actually check into the 100 moving average. That's a big reason why it's getting a pretty good bounce right now. It is kind of interesting though, because the past 2 days we have seen the dollar actually come back somewhat strong, but gold has continued higher as well. Kind of just tells you, man, people unsure about a lot of things, but they are sure about gold, right? 10-year yield still kind of just basing here. Definitely doesn't say we're going to just drop off and just change direction. It says either we're probably going to base here, continue to consolidate, or maybe we're going to be pushing higher here sometime soon. Yields, though, don't look horrible. 10 and 2 inversion, still just kind of hanging out, not really doing a whole lot. Fair enough. HYG, it is also continuing higher. So there you go. I mean, yields aren't dropping off super hard, but HYG's continuing higher. And LQD, a little bit of an upper wick coming in today, kind of checking into those moving averages on some downtrends. So yeah, if we get a pretty good breakdown here soon, probably has a little bit of room to run, but I mean, we could just be basing here. Could be in the middle of a base. Same thing with the TLT. I mean, it's just been really, really choppy in here for about the best part of a month. Even though it's a little bit of a downtrend, it's been pretty choppy. And I tell you, people want to be in on that area at that price level, but once eventually, if you get through all that cluster, there might not be anybody at these lower levels, so you might have some pretty good bearish runs if you get through there. All right, as far as sector rotation on the day, communications, the big lagger here, XLC, interesting. Okay. So XLC's big lagger. Discretionary's underperforming. Healthcare underperforming a little bit there. Outperformers, real estate, tech, materials outperforming a little bit. Utilities and staples. And then the day's best performers, financials, industrials, and energy outperforming the best. You can really kind of see tech got a nice strong pop to the day, and then yeah, it kind of just came back pretty quick. It's got a pretty good run here over the past 30 minutes or so, but not not as strong as that open. As far as intraday price action, communications, tech underperforming the most. Discretionary is a slight outperformance there. Healthcare outperforming pretty good. Materials, real estate, financials, energies, utilities, industrial staples, kind of all the higher end of the day.